Have you ever dreamt of walking to your boss's office and saying, I quit, knowing you'll never need to work another day in your life?
But it seems impossible, right? I mean, especially when you're stuck with like a 9 to 5.
Well, what if I told you there's a guy that did exactly that at the age of only 38?
No way. No way. 38? Oh, you're pulling my leg. He must be some kind of financial wizard or something.
No, his name is Xiao Chun. And get this, he built a $2 million portfolio in just 8 years while working his everyday 9 to 5.
$2 million in 8 years on a regular salary?
Yep. And today we're going to break down the article he wrote about the 4 key principles that made it all possible.
Okay, well, I'm intrigued. What are we talking about here? Is it some complex investment strategies or like a secret stock picking algorithm?
Yeah, that's the best part, Dom. It's all stuff our listeners can start doing today. We're talking practical, actionable steps.
All right, well, you got my attention. What's these principles you're talking about?
Well, for starters, how about saving 50% of every one of your paychecks?
50? Whew, that's a lot. That is a lot. How did he manage that?
Well, that's exactly what we'll be diving into today. Plus, we'll cover how he's using the famous 4% rule to live off his investments right now.
That sounds like a gold mine of information, honestly, especially for our FI community. What else can our listeners expect from this episode?
We'll break down all 4 of Xiao's principles, discuss how they align with our 5 philosophy, and we'll give our take on how our listeners can apply these ideas into their own lives today.
So basically what you're saying is, whether you're starting out on this FI journey or you're well on your way, this episode is packed with insights that you're not going to want to miss.
Yeah, so if you've ever felt trapped by your job, dreamed of early retirement, or just want to make your money work harder for you, then stick around. We're about to dive deep into the 4 principles that could change your financial future.
Yeah, so let's get started.
So, Dom, you know that I listen to a sickening amount of podcasts and read far too many financial articles. And this past week, I came across an article by Yahoo Finance, and it was titled, I Reached Financial Freedom by the Age of 38. And here are my 4 money principles that I live by. So, of course, I read the article and wanted to know, hey, what are these guys' money principles? Are they different than mine? And after reading that, I thought, hey, let's make a whole podcast and bring these guys' different principles that he came up with to our FI community to see if they could implement into their lives. Because I know that it's something that I did in my life. But rather than me just telling you how I reached financial independence, I want to start to source it out to the community members, other people who have achieved FI, in order to show the community that this isn't just some secret knowledge that no one has. This is something that anyone can do if they buckle down and work hard.
That's unbelievable. 38 is, to say it lightly, I mean, that's the dream, right? That's awesome. That's super amazing. Yeah, great resource. We love you for reading, Chris. We love you for soaking up all the knowledge. You know, you're like the king sponge. You're taking all the knowledge, you're running it through the Chris filter, and you're sending it out to the people. We appreciate you. We love you for it. So yeah, I'm to say I'm elated, to say I'm excited to get deep into this is an understatement. And I think I would hope most people are as well. I mean, if you're clicked onto this podcast, you want to retire early, you want to tell your boss to stick it. Maybe not. Maybe you don't feel like doing that for 60 years or whatever. But yeah, I'm stoked. Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the author of the article. His name is actually Xiao Chun, and Xiao was a tech worker. I'm not sure exactly which company he worked for. They never said, but he said that for 8 years while he was working at this tech company, he was not making a huge salary. So I'm going to say probably sub $100,000, which I'm pretty sure majority of our community could sit there and say, yeah, I'm probably in that range, 60, 50, 80, 100, somewhere in there. And he was actually able to build a $2 million portfolio while working a 9 to 5 job and saving a huge amount of his income every month. And there's a really great quote that I like from him, which is, you can actually achieve financial freedom while working a 9 to 5 job. Pretty simple. But I think so many people out there, they'll say like, well, financial independence might be easy for that person because they had all these other leg ups. They had a side hustle. They had 15 other companies. They had money from mommy and daddy. They had all these other things. But we can see from Chow's story that he'd never had a leg up. Yeah, maybe he was working for a tech company. And I know a lot of people will look and be like, oh, well, of course, financial independence is only achievable by tech bros. But I wasn't a tech bro in any way. And I was able to achieve it by sticking to the same core principles that Chow's going to talk about and we're going to talk about here in the podcast today.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I know I know you're not a lot on social media. You're not big in the TikTok, the YouTube, all that stuff. But what I've seen a lot is people picking sides between, it's impossible financially free, and it's possible. There's massive skepticism. Everything in this world today is just the pendulum is either left or right. There's nothing in the center anymore. And I hope this podcast really brings those people that are way far over in the deep end where they not possible to bring them back over and really give them hope again. Because I feel like when a human loses hope, that's when life really gets dark. It takes a lot to climb out of that. So big shout out to this wonderful guy, Xiao Chun, for sharing his story. And I'm excited to get into this. Yeah, this is beautiful. And I love that quote you were saying that it's possible to become financially independent while working a 9 to 5. I love that. You don't have to have, like you said, you don't have to have mommy and daddy's money. Most of us don't. Most of us, our parents are probably not great with money, like most of Americans. If your parents are great with money, you are in the minority. I don't know what the percentage is, but it is definitely low. So we're not all about mommy's money, daddy's money here. We're all about boots on the ground, ideas, tactics, and strategies to get you to where you want to go. And this story, this guy he walked the path, he led it. So let's see what we can learn from him.
Yeah, in only 8 short years, which is pretty crazy. I mean, that's even faster than I was able to do it. So, I mean, he must have, he definitely had some advantages, I'm sure, but everyone has advantages, everyone has disadvantages. And rather than comparing yourself to somebody else, what you have to do is say like, yes, I may have all these disadvantages against me, but I still need to get started. You still need to start at some point. So I want to go ahead and start into principle number 1 from Chow. And that is that we need to acknowledge that the ultimate goal is to be free.
I like that. Clearly defined goal. That's a great first step. That's an amazing first step.
Yeah, we always need to make sure that we're being intentional with our purpose for financial freedom or financial independence. We really have to shift our mindset from valuing stability in our job into valuing freedom from our job. Wow. And there's a quote that Chow put inside of the article that I really liked, and it was, what we use to value was stability. But given that where the economy is going right now, stability is no longer a perk that companies can provide us. So I think we can all think back to our grandparents and maybe mom and dad. You would ask them, hey, how did you guys retire? What did you guys do? And they're like, oh yeah, I just worked a job for 40 years. It was really, really stable, showed up every day. And then they paid me a pension. I got Social Security, and now here I am. But for our day and age, that's not a possibility. I mean, I can think of 1, maybe 2 places, and most of them are for the government, that you can actually get a pension over 20 years. But anywhere else, you're not getting a pension. You're not getting anything like that. So sticking with a company because you want to be loyal to them, because you think they're going to be loyal to you in retirement, I just think it's gone the way of the birds. It's gone now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sad reality, but there's no sense being sad about it. You just gotta, those are the cards we're dealt. So we either play the hand or walk away from the table. I'm not one to kill myself yet, so we're gonna play our cards. So let's do it. That was a little bit dark, even for me. So we're gonna keep them going. We're gonna keep it going.
It's all good, Dom. But I think we just need to recognize that companies can no longer provide us long-term job security like they used to. In fact, according to a Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median employee tenure as of 2022 was 4.1 years, which is actually down from 4.3 years in 2020. So this has just been declining and declining and declining. People are not staying at jobs for very long because I think we all know now that sticking with a job, while you may be loyal to them, that does not mean that they are loyal back to you. And there's a quote that Chow put inside the article that I really enjoyed that said, the current generation feels stuck, like they need to dedicate themselves to one particular path. But your objective is to be free. Your objective is not to be loyal.
4 years, 4.1 years in 2022. I can only assume it's gone down even more since we're in 2024.
I would assume so.
Yeah, that's rightfully so, though. I mean, we did an entire episode on how to increase your pay, right? One of the main ways was to move to another job. Even last week's 5 Friday feedback, they were giving him a promotion with no added increase of salary. I mean, that's disrespectful. First of all, it's crazy, right? That's actually crazy. So I can see why that number just keeps coming down and down and down. Soon, every 6 months, you're gonna have a new job. It's gonna be crazy. Hopefully, not that bad, but it's getting pretty wild out there.
No, you're exactly right, and it was so sad. I mean, it was a good thing to see during COVID that employers were finally like, oh my God, we actually need our employees, and they're actually really important to us. And we started to see for the first time in my gen, as long as I could ever remember, that the workers actually had some power. They had some ability to say, like, I'm going to be working from home. You're going to be paying me more. I'm going to be taking more vacation days. And all this stuff was working really well. And for the first time, the pendulum had shifted back to the employee, and the employee had power. But now, here in 2024, only a few short years later, the pendulum has shifted back. And now, while people might say, oh, the job market's never been stronger, if you actually look at how the Bureau of Labor Statistics does their measurements, they're constantly changing the metrics in order to show that we have higher people working than we normally do, by saying, like, oh, someone's working who should be working full time is working part time. That's considered work. They're working gig economy stuff, like they're driving Uber or DoorDash. That's considered work. Where normally, or back in the past, that wouldn't be considered full employment. But nowadays, we've just changed the way that we value the statistics in order to show that, hey, look how good our economy is. We have a 3% unemployment rate. Well, the reason we have a 3% unemployment rate is because we changed the way that we find the statistics. So it's a little pernicious.
That's a dangerous game they're playing. When you have false information like that, it's only going to blow up in your face. Because you're making decisions on stuff that isn't accurate. If the gas gauge in my car shows full all the time, sooner or later, I'm going to run out of gas. I'm going to be stuck on the highway hitchhiking with a gallon of gas. It's not going to be good. So hopefully we can kind of stop changing definitions and whatnot and get back to the facts of the matter, right? People are having a hard time finding jobs that pay well. A lot of jobs have requirements that are unnecessary for the jobs at hand. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the story, it's one thing to become financially free, but to do it in under a decade is crazy, right? And that scares a lot of people. A decade sounds like forever. A decade sounds the difference between a decade and 100 years to some people is nothing, right? That sounds like forever ago. But if you want to build something long lasting, it's going to take time, right?
I always like that good quote when it comes to what should we do when it comes to, like, when should we start planting? It's the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time is right now. So what most people do is they're like, oh, you know what? That retirement thing, that's 40, 50 years off in the future. 40, 50-year-old me, they're going to have to deal with that stuff. Like, good luck to you. But would you rather say, like, look back at yourself? I don't care what age you are. You're 30 years old, 40 years old. Don't you wish that 10 years ago at this time, you were saving 5, 6, 10% of your income, 20% of your income, 30, 40, even 50? Because that means that today your past self would have set you up so much stronger than maybe you are currently right now. And I think that's a lot of Americans, and I'm gonna guess people all around the world are looking around, and their governments are telling them, hey, everything's good, unemployment's low, inflation's low, you should be happy. But people feel fundamentally like there is something wrong here. I can't find a job. And even the job that I do find, I'm underemployed. I don't have benefits. I'm working harder than I ever have and just not getting anywhere. And while statistics might show, like, no, you're doing good, everyone is doing good, people know in their gut that something feels off. And, I feel that 100% every single day. So rather than sitting there and lamenting the government and trying to burn it all down, maybe at some point we do need to get to that point. But before we get there, before we burn the ships, as it were, let's try to make sure that we take control of ourselves. Let's try to follow the principles that Xiao has laid out in front of us, and the thing that the five philosophy tries to teach everyone, in that we can't control what the government does. We can't control a lot of things in life, but we control the way that we react to them. We can always be in control of ourselves. That's the basics of stoicism.
Absolutely. So getting back to his principles, right? He talks a lot about, you know, in the intro we talked about 50%. He saves 50% of his income, right? That's tough for a lot of people to do. But one of the first rules of finance that we've talked about it a few times on the podcast is pay yourself first, right? And I never understood that rule. I never got that rule many years ago. What do you mean? I don't get it. And only recently, in the last 3-4 years, have I kind of got it, right? Money's going to get taken out. Right? You got those things on auto pay, the electric, the credit card bills, the mortgage, stuff like that. And at the end, you might be left with nothing. And that's where it's like, well, I can't save 50%, 50 for 60, 70, 80% of my stuff goes right to the bills. And I love his idea of saving 50% off the gate, out the gate. So if I make 100,000 a year, just after tax, whatever, right? I actually make 50,000 a year and living like it. Because the first 50, that goes right into savings. That goes into his investments. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that our listeners, while they hear that, and many people, they're not at Chow's point. They're not at a point where they just got out of college. They're used to living on rice and beans every day, and now they find their job, and now they're going to say, "I'm going to save 50%." Most people are not at that point. Most people are already using up 100% of their income. What most people do is they get their paycheck and they say, "Hey, whatever is left of this paycheck after I pay all of my bills and live the month, that's going to go into my retirement. That'll go into savings." But unfortunately, due to like Parkinson's law, the volume will take up whatever amount that you give it. So if you have $2,000 to spend, you're going to spend $2,000. Same thing as to like, hey, I'm going to give you, when remember being back in school, hey, you have a month to do this assignment. Well, it's going to take you a month to do the assignment, but we all know we're going to end up doing it the night before. The teacher could have said it's due tomorrow. You would have been doing the same amount of work. At least with that, you wouldn't have the agony of the whole month knowing you're putting it off.
Yeah. And for those who at one time in high school actually do it early, you know how good that feels, right? And you know the feeling of, oh shoot, it's 10:30 at night. We have a project due tomorrow, right? My mom used to, oh, I used to drive my mom up the wall when I was in elementary school. Like, Mom, could we go to the store? I gotta go to get some cardboard. I have a project due tomorrow. Terrible. Oh, she gets so pissed, right? Hopefully when we're having kids one day, let's train them right. Let's retrain our current adult human brains so that we don't procrastinate. And I will say, a couple podcasts back, my win of the week was I was stopping procrastination for the month. Right, just whenever I needed to do something, I did it. Let me tell you, it has had unbelievable changes. Unbelievable. I've started eating healthier. I've transferred jobs. I'm currently going to the gym unbelievably consistently now. Things are up. Things are very much up. Got a new bank. Like things are going crazy now. So, yeah, guys, crazy things can happen when you stop procrastinating. But enough about me and my troubles in my life. Let's get back into the pod. Let's get back into Xiao Chung's story. I want to hear more about this.
Yeah. Before we get there, though, I just want to make sure that people who do listen and say 50% of my income, that's impossible. And yeah, I agree. Maybe 50% is impossible for you right now, but that doesn't mean we can't start building up. So maybe we'll never reach the goal of 50%. The reason I like 50%, the reason Chow likes 50% is because if you're saving 50% of your income, regardless of what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the world, what's going on in your bank account, you're going to be just fine. If you're saving 50% of your income, you are going to be fine regardless of like a nuclear apocalypse. Like that's not like that. Yeah, 50% income is not going to save you from the zombie apocalypse. But if you're not at 50%, can we start at 5 and then next year increase to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Anything is better than nothing. And I think too many people in financial planning and, when it comes to finances, even when it comes to your fitness, is they let good be the enemy of perfect, or they let perfect be the enemy of good. Can we just be good enough? And good enough can just be wherever you are right now. Because yes, I agree. If you're used to spending 100% of your income and I tell you, hey, we need to save 50% of that, you're never going to do it. But if you're saving 100%, if you're spending 100% of your income and I say, hey, can we save 1% of that? Can we just not go out to coffee like once a week or something like that? Is that possible? Most people will be like, yeah, I think I can do that. And now the compounding effect of your life getting better starts to show you like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. And we just make one small step at a time. So if you're not at 50% savings rate, which if you're listening to this, you're right out of high school, right out of college, you are in a golden opportunity, my friend, to be able to set yourself up the rest of your life. But if you're listening to this and you're 30, 40 years old and you're like, hey, I have a family, I have kids, I can't do that. Hey, I feel you. I understand that. I've been there. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take hard work, but I can guarantee you that even saving 5%, 10% is better than saving nothing, or even worse, spending more than you're making, which unfortunately majority of Americans are doing. And Chow really talked about taking advantage of online resources to learn about wealth building. In fact, he had a quote that said, the beautiful thing about our lives right now is that while jobs may no longer provide security, you have many resources that are available online as well to continue to learn and grow your financial knowledge.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this podcast, you already know that, right? You're a part of a great community like the FI community. If you're not a part of the community, feel free to subscribe, follow along, share with a friend. This journey is so much more enjoyable when you go with a friend. so much more enjoyable when you learn with a friend, right? So yeah, feel free to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and to tell a friend. We would really appreciate that. And I know you're the type of person that wants to see people get better and rise and really join you on that journey, because there's nothing sadder, at least in my opinion. One of the saddest things in the world is getting to 50, 60 years old, right? You've reached financial freedom many years ago. You've traveled, you've done all that fun stuff. And you say, "Hey guys, let's go hang out. Let's go to Disney World. Let's go hang out." And then, oh, that's right. All my friends can't because they're still working, because I didn't share financial freedom 20, 30 years ago, and they're still trapped in the rat race and they have no money. That's a sad place to be. So don't be afraid to share the financial journey, share the podcast, share this knowledge, right? We want to help you, but we want to help everybody. Right? So that's kind of my little quick little promo. I hate to do it, but our goal with the podcast obviously is to help more people and more people and more people every single day. So that being said, let's get back. Let's get back. No more promo, Dom. Back to knowledgeable Chris. Let's get back into it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dom. That was beautifully said. So again, principle number one is acknowledge that the ultimate goal is freedom. Ultimate goal for why you're trying to save money is to be free from having to work 9 to 5, free from having to do things you don't want to do. It is freedom first and foremost. But you might sit there and say, but that's Chow's thing. Financial independence means something different to everyone, but to Chow and also to me, freedom is the number one thing. Let's move on to principle number two. Principle number two by Chow is you actively need to work to increase your income.
Okay. Makes sense. That makes sense. Beautiful. Let's hear more about it. I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, I think what Chow talks a lot about is you need to know when to job hop. And we talked about that earlier on, right? Sometimes it's really sad to say that working for a company for 20, 30, 40 years is not the way to increase your income. Sometimes the best time is to know when to leave. And Chow said, you must find ways to increase your active income. And he also said that it's time to move when you're no longer learning or earning.
So when you're no longer learning or you're no longer earning, you've capped out one or both. That's when you should exit, basically.
Yep.
Job hop to a position where you can learn more or earn more. And the keyword is or, correct? Not and.
Yeah, he put or in there. That's a direct quote from him. He said or. Yeah, I would say learning or earning would be both, because sometimes it might be effective to take a lower paying job to know that you're getting into an industry that has upward potential, or maybe you're at the tutelage of someone you can learn something amazing from. But at some point, if you're just there forever and no longer earning money, we live in the real world. We have to continue to grow our income. And I think so many people, they focus on, there's two different groups of people that only focus on I'm just going to save as much money as I possibly can and just cut my lifestyle. And then but I'm not going to worry about how much money I'm making. And there's people that do the opposite, that just say like, I'm going to spend all of my money and not care about that. And I'm going to care. And the only way that I can build it is by making more money. And again, it's somewhere in the middle. So what I like about Chow's second principle is that, yes, we want to save 50% of our income. And we also want to try to increase our income as much as we possibly can, because it's going to be really hard for most people to achieve financial independence in a shorter timeline if you're only making $40,000 a year, if you're only making $50,000 a year, and your expenses are $30,000, $40,000. You really can't go much lower than that without, living under a bridge or something like that. But where we can only cut so much, we have unlimited upside potential that we continue to grow over time. So
Absolutely.
At some point, sometimes it's worth actually leaving a job, or if you're not ready to leave a job, you need to be willing to negotiate for yourself and go to your boss and tell them that you're ready for the next promotion. And Dom, do you have any things we can talk maybe with our audience members of how to ask for a promotion?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is you're an asset to the company. Right? It's very expensive to try and rehire someone. So going with that in mind, right? If you've never negotiated anything before, highly recommend checking out one of our podcasts on how to increase your salary. Give it a good old YouTube or Spotify search. Another book we talk about a lot on the podcast is Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss. Right? A lot of great negotiating techniques in there. Helpful stuff that you wouldn't think to use every day, but yet they're almost like Jedi mind tricks. Right? They're crazy. They're unbelievable. I mean, you can get people talking and talking and talking, and usually the one who listens is the one who has the power, because the one who's talking is spilling all the information, right? So the more information you have, the better, the decision you can make, right? Um, but in regards to asking for more money, um, there's nothing wrong with looking at what are the competitors charging, or paying for the job that you're doing, right? What's the difference? Is it the same? Like, what are we talking about here? And you can use stuff like those other people's offers as leverage, to get those. And maybe you don't want to go that far. Maybe you feel uncomfortable putting in a application at somewhere else when you really don't know if you want to work there. And I totally get that. Totally get that. Um, but I think the first things first, right? Be a good employee, right? If you're coming in 20 minutes late every day, you do sloppy work and you make a lot of errors, listen, you can go into that negotiation. I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. But hey, if you got the guts to show up 20 minutes late and ask for a promotion, um, there might be a different line of work for you, because that's very gutsy. You might want to just switch to sales, because that's just super gutsy. But yeah, that's kind of my little spiel on that. What do you think, Chris? What do you have any tips for people trying to increase their income? Because like you said, you can only trim so much fat off the bones before you're gnawing out and you're just living under a bridge. But the upward potential, you can always earn more and earn more and earn more, but you can only cut so much before, like you said, living under a bridge. What do you got? Any tips for us?
Yeah, for sure. What I'll do is I'll tell you what I used to do to get promotions pretty often when I was working for an employer. And Dom, you gave a few different, I'll call them hacks, like you said, like Chris Voss's never split the deal, or never split the difference, which gives you a bunch of little hacks, right? And I think too many of our population, they're listening to it and they'll be like, I just want all the little hacks. I want the secrets to go ahead and walk into my boss's office and say I want more money. And like if I just knew the right sequence of words to say it at the right cadence, then he'll be hypnotized and just be like, here's $1,000. Like you win. Yeah, yeah. You want
Well,
to pay me more money, right?
yeah, a
And,
little
just
Jedi
do the
mind
old
trick. Yeah,
Jedi
yeah,
mind trick there.
yeah.
But
Exactly, exactly.
first Star Wars reference, we got it.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, and this is what people don't want to hear, it comes down to working really, really freaking hard. So what I used to do when I was employed is, and just imagine yourself, if you're the boss and like you're the boss right now, audience member, and I come into your office and I walk into my boss's office and I say, hey boss, I know that we're trying to grow the company and I really want to be a part of this company for the long term. What things do you need out of me, my department, in order to continue to increase revenue, increase whatever it is that's most important to you, boss? And then first off, if I'm the boss and the boss walks in there and one of my employees comes in there and says like, hey, I want to be here for the long term. What do you need from me to reach your strategic goals? This person's already an asset, like in my brain. Now, what you're going to do is say like, all right, so what is it that you're looking for? You're going to sit there, pen and paper, write it all out. This is what you're looking for. Okay, perfect. In 4 months, 3 months, 6 months, if I deliver on these things, would it be possible for us to, at that point, discuss a higher compensation or maybe even a promotion? Your boss is going to say, yeah, of course. They're not taking on any risk at this point. Now, what you have to do, this is the hard part. You need to go out and deliver. You need to go out there and actually make good on your promises that you said you can deliver for your employer. After 4, 5, 6 months, while you're doing all the hard work, I would try to collect anytime that you get an email from a team member saying, hey, great job. Anytime you get anything, save that inside of a little folder in your inbox called like promotion or salary increase or whatever it is. Save every little thing that you do that is above and beyond. After 4 to 6 months, whatever that timeline is, you talk with your boss, you go back to your boss, say, hey, boss, last time we had a conversation, and obviously you don't just talk with your boss one time in this whole time. You're doing check-ins every week, every month. Just kind of let him know what your progress is. You're not trying to be showy on it, but you're just telling him like, hey, I heard you. This is what I'm doing. After 4 or 5 months of doing this, 6 months, you're going to go and check in and say, hey, boss, last time we talked, you said you wanted to increase my sales production, or my team's sales production by 5%. You wanted us to decrease our expenses by this much. Well, we not only did that, we exceeded that. So now we're making this much more money. We're doing this. We're doing all these things. And here are some of the emails I have. Here are some of the things that I've been able to accomplish here in the last 6 months after our meetings together and working together. With all of this information, let's go ahead and talk about an increase in pay or a promotion. At that point, you have all of the power at your hand because now you've just shown this person all the value you bring, all the money. You've shown them step by step. Now you're making a no-brainer offer to them. It's either pay me or I'm going to take all this knowledge and all this asset that I am, and I'm going to go somewhere else. So you need to really make this offer as simple as you possibly can to your employer so that they're willing to do it for you. And yes, I agree. It is hard work. It's hard work for your boss to say, I want you to do all this work. And you actually have to execute on it. But again, there are no secrets in life. It's the same thing with the jujitsu. I just came from jujitsu like an hour and a half ago. There are so many times where I wish that I was not getting smashed and I knew what the secret was to not getting smashed. But at the end of the day, it's showing up every week and getting smashed for you to be able to figure it out. There are no secrets in this life. That is the secret of life. It just takes hard work, dedication, and time. And that's what Xiao is really trying to show all of us, is that there are really no secrets, because the principles, after you hear all of them, when you've already heard two of them, are going to sound like, oh yeah, that's really basic. Why are you even telling me that? Like, what's the real secret though? There is no real secret.
No. And once you learn that there are no secrets, that's when the real secret is discovered, right? It's that tiny minuscule 1%. I want to get better tomorrow. I want a six pack tomorrow. I want the 100% tomorrow. It's like, well, you can't. That's not real. I mean, I could get you surgery and have some implants put in there, but that's not real. Um, and it won't last. And you'll know it's fake, and everyone else will know it'll fake. But if you really want them, it's a longer process through hard work, discipline, and recurringly putting yourself in the fire to become the sharpest sword you can become. And that's what I want to stress most about this. He talks about actively working to increase your income. It's going to be scary sometimes. It's sometimes it's scary to knock on your boss's door and walk into, hey, bing, bang, boom. It's tough. It's scary sometimes, right? So it's so important to, when you are feeling that fear, to act on it. Don't procrastinate it, because if you procrastinate it once, it'll never get done. When you have the fear, that's when that's when you're supposed to jump. That's when you got to go for it now, because you're not getting any younger, and you're losing time, right? And you're losing memories with your family, and you don't know which memory you're going to lose. You don't know how much time you have left. So there's really no time to really waste here, right? The 8 years is unbelievable what he got done in those 8 years. I want that for everybody. Our job on this planet is not I wasn't born to work. I work so that I can, go and enjoy the rest of my life. So please, please use what we're talking and do it fast. Do it fast, guys. Did he have any like side hustles or anything like that?
Yeah, that's actually we're going to talk about. That's actually we're going to talk about next. So some people, what they won't, maybe they're going to hear us and be like, "Chris, you want me to work extra hard at my job?" Like, I'm not going to do that. So he said that you can always consider, this is called overemployment. Working a side hustle is now you are overemployed. You're working more jobs than you probably should. So a quote that he said is, so you have people working multiple jobs, having side hustles, or even working two remote jobs. That's one way, but the burnout is high. So if you are unwilling to work hard in your first job, or you're unwilling to go and negotiate for yourself, but you need to make more money, then yeah, if we need to make more money, we have to go ahead and find another side hustle. But we have to realize that whenever we take on a side hustle, nothing in this life is free. It's going to take up your time. It's going to take up your energy. But there are some things that he talked about in order to decrease the chances of your side hustle burning you out. So the first thing he talks about side hustle is you want to try to find a side hustle that is low effort. So he basically said you want to pick something that has a low lift to it. So what I would think is something that's pretty easy to do, maybe Uber, DoorDash, something like that. But now we know that that's also going to still be an issue because you're not making a lot of money, but at least you're not burning yourself out driving around. I know some people really do burn out with that kind of stuff, but finding something that is a low lift for you would probably be the best thing. There's an old quote that I've always liked, that if you're trying to work on a car and you're using too much muscle, you're using the wrong tool. So if you're going through life and you're just using all this muscle, all this willpower to hopefully make more money, maybe you're on the wrong job. Like maybe this just isn't the right thing for you. You're just using the wrong tool. Maybe we just need to find something that's a little bit better than you. So what that means is when we're trying to find a side hustle, we want to find a side hustle that actually complements our existing skills. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. So you can always go back and listen to that. We're not going to stick on it too much. But ideally, what we're trying to do is we're trying to generate passive income, things that we can put in the work once, like this podcast, for example. We put in the work once. You and I are going to record for this 1 hour, and it's going to go into the internet and basically be little soldiers for us, going out there and spreading the word of financial independence. We're not getting on Zoom calls with one individual person every single week and trying to spread the doctrines of pi. We're just coming out there and we're doing it one time and just putting it into the ether. And that should be the exact same thing that people are trying to do with their side hustles.
And I love that. I love that. And part of it is it's a legacy play too, because it'll be there forever, right? I love the idea of being 90 years old and be like, oh, look at this. Remember this chapter where we did podcasting? We did freaking great. We helped so many people. I love that. I love that. Right? And it just continues to, people continue to watch it and watch it and watch it. I was talking with my dad earlier today, and it's interesting. He was talking to me about his investments in real estate and whatnot. And he's like, I just love it. First of the month comes so quickly. Every first of the month, I get that check. And I don't do anything. It just comes because I planted the seeds, the trees grew, and now I'm reaping the rewards, the fruit of my labor. I love that. I want that for everybody. I really want that. I feel like everybody should have a rental. I truthfully speaking, and I might be biased, but I think everybody should have 2 or 3 rentals, 1 or 2 rentals, right? That's my thought process. But I know that's not possible or maybe even plausible, but that would be my hope for everybody. So we talked a little bit about low effort, or he called it a low lift, correct?
He called it low lift,
Yep.
Existing skill set, and
Yep.
ideally something that's generating passive income. And, I think it's both good and somewhat sad. But a recent Zapier survey found that 40% of Americans actually now have a side hustle, which is up from 34% back in 2021. Which that's good that they're getting out there and they're trying to make something better for themselves. But that also shows me that their normal job is not cutting it, forcing them to have to find a side hustle, which is both great that they're taking the effort, but also very sad that they have to take that effort. But again, we don't work in the realm of, oh, I wish that we would just get free universal care and all this stuff, rather than sitting there and complaining. The longer you're sitting there wasting your energy complaining about it is less energy that you can actually put into the solution to the problem.
Definitely. Yeah. Be the hero of your own story, guys. We talk about it all the time. You can be a victim, but nothing's going to change. You can't be the guide. What was the 4th one? There's the victim, the hero, the guide,
Dylan.
the villain. That's right. Forget about that guy. That's a dark one. So we've got principle 1, acknowledge your ultimate goal is to be free. Principle 2, actively work to increase your income. Love that. Principle 3, are we ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it. Principle 3 is decrease how much money you're spending. And I know that what you're saying, Chris, of course, try to make more money, try to spend less money. It's also basic. But what is the secret? This is the secret. You actually need to freaking start doing it. Rather than just hearing what I'm saying, you need to start. So what I actually call this in my business and what Xiao calls it in his business is he calls this your burn rate. That's how much money you're spending, how much money is coming in, and you are basically burning those dollars the moment that they come in. And yeah, you could burn, just like when you burn firewood, you could burn your firewood to make sure that you're giving yourself heat to cook food, or you could just burn fire out in the middle of the yard that no one's around, and now you're just wasting money. It's the exact same thing. That's what we call it, a burn rate. So I always like to think about practicing our discipline, right? If you want freedom, you actually need to be disciplined. That's directly from Chow. And I always think at this point, Jocko, our favorite Navy SEAL, discipline equals freedom. If you want to be financially free, if you want to be fit, if you want to be all these things, you need to be disciplined. Don't wait for motivation to come and find you, because that's never going to show up. You just need to be disciplined to start, and the motivation will find you in getting started. And I've been thinking about it. I've been the past few weeks, I've been creating a new lead engine for my coaching business. So, and it's a lot of work. Like it's a lot of freaking work on the computer of like making all this stuff. And I don't like computer work, like not my thing. And for like weeks, I was procrastinating, or not weeks. Okay. Like 2 weeks, I was procrastinating on like starting doing this thing. And one day I was like, you know what, man, I just need to start. Like I'm waiting for motivation to hit me. And I know it's not going to come hit me. And I just went and I finally started, and I just dedicated an hour. I just said, like, you know what am I going to do is I'm going to start for 1 hour today. If I get 1 hour, this will be a good day. By the end of it, I was like 6 hours into this thing and like so far along because like once you find that momentum, you just want to keep going. Once you start with using your discipline muscle, then the motivation finds you. Don't wait for the motivation to kick in your discipline muscle. You need your motivation to switch on your discipline muscle, and that's going to force your little motivation ass to get out there and get after it.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something that connected with me so good. It's such an interesting place to be in life when you want to procrastinate and you do procrastinate, but you also have the knowledge and the experience to know that nobody's coming to save you and only you have to do it. So it's like, damn, I can't even enjoy procrastination anymore. I got to get up and do this. Damn, I've enlightened myself too much. That's awesome. I
And
love it.
that's the funny part, right? Like there's no one that's perfect, right? Even while I can sit here and try to teach this to our audience members, that doesn't mean that I don't deal with the exact same things every day. Yeah, of course I want to go out and buy. I mean, for me, like I don't care about cars. I don't care about all this stuff. Like I like to go out and eat. Like that's my big money value. And I would love nothing more than to never have to cook a meal and just go out to dinner every single night. That would be amazing for me. But I don't do that because we need to save more money. And we that's not the life that we've built for ourselves. So we have to align our actions with our goal of freedom. That's why principle number one was making sure that number one is your goal is freedom. And our actions that we do every single day is trying to get us towards our goal. So what I want our listeners to avoid, and this is what Chow talks about, is we need to avoid seeking instant gratification. Yeah, I know that donut might look good right freaking now, but if you eat that, you know that you're not going to feel good tomorrow. Yeah, if you walk into Target and you see the new Le Creuset set or whatever it is, and you're like, that would make me so happy. You know, if you buy it, you're gonna, after you get home, you're gonna be like, damn it, now I need to work an extra 2 days next week in order to pay this thing off.
True. I
It's
was in Costco
difficult.
literally today fighting that exact battle. I went right through the ice cream aisle. I don't need ice cream. I don't need it. I went through, they had these ice cream bars. It was 18 of them for $10. I was like, man, these look good. $10? It's only $10. 18 of them. Like, how many am I really gonna eat? Gave me like 2 months to eat this. Like, and then I was, man, I was like, man, I would love nothing more. Nothing would make me happier than to grab these things and put it in the cart and get to the checkout. I'm like, I'm just tired of being fat. And obviously I'm not 600 pounds, I'm not 400, I'm not even 300 pounds. I'm barely even 200 pounds, right? But I know where I want to go. I have a clear goal in mind. And I run this decision through my goal. And if it'll get me closer or further, and that decides it. Do I want the ice cream? Yeah. But I want to be fit more than I want to be happy and fat, right? So I ran it through my filter of, well, will this get me closer to being a healthy human being or further? This is going to get me further. All right, put it back. I didn't even touch it. Honestly, I didn't even open the door. I just looked at it. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And that's what you got to do with everything in life. Is it serving my goal or is it not serving my goal? You have to question everything from the coffee you drink to the bank you bank with to the workout you skip. You got to question it all.
Yeah, and it's tough. Like there is no secret to this. It is tough, but you need to question yourself and figure out what's the end purpose and start moving towards there. I deal with this every single day, and that's part of the game. It's never going to go away. Even someone who is financially independent still deals with the same level of BS. It never goes away, and that's part of the growing and the learning. But the next thing that we need to avoid after after not seeking instant gratification, we need to avoid living beyond our means. I mean, how many of us get our paycheck and before we even get the paycheck, majority of it's already gone to bills and stuff. And how many of our Five Friday feedbacks are people writing in because they're in debt? And every single one of them, well, majority of them now are saying like, I know what you're going to say, but my instance is different. And every single time, their instance is exactly the same. Their situation is exactly the same as everyone else's situation. And the way they're going to get out of it is the exact same way that everyone else has gotten out of it. It's by making more money and spending less money and stop living beyond your means. You need to stop continuing to burn through your money. And I know it's going to be hard. There is no easy choices. You can have anything you want in life. If you want financial freedom, you can have it, but you can't have everything else. It always comes with sacrifice. And that is the hardest thing for people to hear.
Absolutely. Got to decrease the money. That's principle 3. Decrease how much you spend. We talked a little
Yep.
bit
And we
about
need to avoid keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the Kardashians, keeping up with your neighbor down the street. Who gives a shit what kind of car he drives or what kind of what their kids are doing during their summertime? Is that Do you have the same goal as them? Have you talked about what their goal is? And are they trying to actively achieve freedom?
Mhm.
Because why are we comparing our chapter 1 to their chapter 20? But why are we comparing our books together where their book might be a horror genre and mine's supposed to be like a happy story
Yeah,
where everything works out? You don't
yeah,
know.
absolutely. You Why would you compare their stories when they don't have the same goal? It's like if you compared Usain Bolt and Eliud Kipchoge, right? One is a world-class marathon runner and one is a world-class 100-meter dash runner, right? If they both set off same time, Usain Bolt's destroying him for the first 100 meters, for 100 yards. That's his goal. His goal is to get to the fastest 100 yards, right? Eliud Kipchoge's goal is to get the fastest, marathon time. So they're not going to be at the same pace. So why would they compare themselves? They wouldn't. Right? And neither should you. Neither should you. And it's so, so, so difficult to stop the comparison. It's tough, especially in the workplace, especially with friends, with family. You feel like you should be somewhere else, but you're right where you allowed yourself to be. And if you don't like where you are, you're going to have to make some changes to go to where you want to be. But if you don't make any changes, then you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to stay put. And that's okay. If Chris doesn't want to go anywhere else, Chris loves his life, he's just going to stay where he's at. He's just going to continue doing what he wants to do, right? Some people, that's perfect. They worked hard. They reached a spot where they can kind of chill. That's fine with them. But most of us, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a person who wants to grow, who wants to be more. I do. Chris does. You do.
And it's tough. I'm never going to say it's not tough. It's tough for me every single day. Me and my wife, we talked last podcast about should we move back to San Diego, and I'm glad to say that we have decided that we're going to do it here in the next few years. We don't have an exact timeline, but first we want to hit some money goals. Um, and now for the first time in like my decade of being my wife, like she is on board with saving money, and like and now she's seeing like, oh, I finally understand why you've been saying this for 10 years because at some point things were going to change, and now the things have changed, and now like we don't have the money that we should be able to have to be able just to leave. And a good should is just a story we came up with our head that's not real, but now we have to make sacrifices. Even as someone who is financially independent, we have to make sacrifices, and that's part of it. According to the Federal Reserve, the average American household carries a $8,270 credit card debt as of July 2024. So when you're looking at your neighbor and they have their new car and they have their normal thing, just remember the average American has $8,000 in debt. And I guarantee you, your neighbor right across the street who has the new boat, the new RV, the new everything, yes, you might be able to look at them and everything looks great from the outside, but you don't know what their financial situation looks like. And for most people, if they're living in your same neighborhood, they're probably in the same socioeconomic class in terms of what they're making. So too often do people look at that, they're like, man, he's my coworker and I know how much I make and he should be making around the same as me, but somehow he's driving this new car and he's going out to dinner, all these stuff. Like, how is he doing all of this? And yeah, maybe he has money from his parents, maybe he has all this other stuff, but maybe, most likely, he's just in a huge amount of debt and all of it's going to catch up to him at some point. So don't compare yourself to somebody else because you don't know every aspect of their life.
Absolutely. What else does he teach for Principle 3?
That's really it. But it's really just, what's the equation to financial independence that we came up with a long time ago? How much money you make minus how much money you spend equals how much money you can invest, how much money you can save, the gap that gets you to financial independence.
Yeah.
And that's really the principles that he is teaching us. So let's move on to principle number 4, if you don't mind.
Perfect. No, I love it.
Principle number 4 is you need to stop trading your time for money.
Isn't that the truth? You only have so much time in a day, in a life. So he talks a little bit about like investing in the stock market. I'm assuming all of this was purely stocks and whatnot.
Yeah.
No.
So what he did was he talked about learning to invest, quote unquote, properly. And then you have to understand the time value of money. So me having money like right now, if I'm going to get that money in the future, then I demand more money because I didn't have it right now. So we need to also realize that for ourselves. Yes, in 20, 30 years, if my parent, like if I was to get $30,000, that would be great. But I would still be happier to get $20,000 today that I can invest and start to have that growing for me. So you have to realize that money, every time you spend it, you are losing purchasing power. You're losing future money that you could have in the future by allowing it to grow.
True. That is very true. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What else
So
does he teach?
A quote from Chow is the last pillar of achieving financial freedom is to not trade time for money. And it's when you need to start investing and investing for the long term, not the short term. We've talked about this at length on the podcast. So if you need to hear more about how to invest properly, we have podcasts all about that. But on average, the S&P 500 has provided an average annual return of 10.62 since 1957. So I get it. Like everyone wants the hot next stock. Everyone wants to know like, hey, what can I do to increase my money 100% tomorrow and 100% the next day? There is nothing. There's nothing that's guaranteed that can do that. But there is something that we have a long historical track record returns 7 to 8 to 9 to 10% per year. And the nice thing about this is it takes zero brains. You can do it and you can go and work on spending less money. You can go and work on making more money. If you want to invest and beat the market, it takes a lot of freaking hard work and it's still not guaranteed. In a few weeks, we're gonna do a podcast that I'm really excited about, and it's the 20 lessons I've learned as a money manager over the past decade, and that's going to be one of them. Investing is hard, and there is no guarantee. But the nice thing about just investing in the market is you've taken that hardness out. I don't have to do anything. Yeah, when I was investing for my individual stocks and I was options trading, I was doing all my stuff for like I was trading my own little personal hedge fund. Was I getting better returns in the market? Yes, I was. But also, it took so much time. I was basically working a full time job and working another full time job to try to make more money. And the way when I started making actual more money is when I stopped doing all that and just started putting it into the market. And then I focused more on making more money, which actually made me more money. It's kind of a crazy concept.
Yeah. No, I think that's the irony of it. You know, you're trading your time to make more money, to gamble it in a sense, when in actuality you could just put it in something you know is gonna grow over time and just go out and make more money, like providing a service or helping someone, doing something like that, doubling down at your job. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's really hard though to avoid that shiny thing syndrome where people are talking, oh, this is the new crypto lens. This is the new Reddit thing. Like all of that sounds so sexy and so great. But what makes you think that you're going to be a part of the people that are part of it? By the time you hear about it, listener, and this includes myself as a financial advisor, by the time I hear about it, it's too late. It's already played out. By the
Yeah,
time it's on the mainstream news, it's like it's weeks old. Like so
absolutely. Yeah, I have an investing theory. If I did research on it and my dad's telling me about it, it's no good. I've already missed it because he's getting his
I've
news
al-
from freaking 5 o'clock news, and yeah, it's like it's too late. It's too late. Too late.
yep, there's an old one for value investing that if your grandma's telling you about a hot new stock, it's time to get the hell out of it. But
Yeah.
I always think that invest in your circle of competence. And one of the things I've always done is if you can't explain your investment to a 6-year-old, then your investment might not be right for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It should be as simple as possible. It really should. I like that. Avoid the shiny syndrome too. That's super, dude. I'm telling you, I was having some shiny syndrome right there in that ice cream aisle at Costco. I'm telling you what, it was tempting, very tempting.
Yeah. And that's one of like Warren Buffett's big old things, right? Is the circle of competence. And if it's outside of his circle of competence, he'll put it in the too hard bucket. And yeah, he loses out on a lot of great deals. Like he lost out on Google, he lost out on Nvidia, he lost out on some of these great ones, but he hasn't lost. He never lost the game. He's still in the game because he didn't go out making these huge bets. Because who could have thought 23 years ago that a small book selling company out of a garage in Seattle would turn into Amazon? yes, looking back 23 years in the future, be like, yeah, of course Amazon was going to do all these things and eventually purchase AWS and do all this stuff. But when you're there and you're Jeff Bezos in your own garage selling books, you had no idea what the future holds. He had no idea of any of the technology that was coming. I mean, just look at large language models and AI. No one knew that that was about to happen and how much the world has changed. So too often when we look to the future, we basically will say like everything remains the same as it is right now. What's going to happen? But we have no idea what's going to happen because things aren't going to stay the same as of right now. So I always like to think of $1,000 invested in the S&P 500 back in 2013 would have grown to about $3,217 by April of 2023. So 10 years and you more than tripled your money. Now, I understand that that was a weird anomaly where things were growing faster than normal, but how many people would even invested $1,000 back in 2013? And if they did, they tried buying and selling, and by the end of it, they ended up probably with nothing. Or you can just put it in there, walk away, do whatever the hell you want to do in your life, come back 10 years later, and it's grown by 3. That is the power of financial independence. That's the power of setting it and forgetting it. And that's what I want our listeners to take away, to stop trying to chase shiny things and focus on what is proven to work. There is a reason that every single financial advisor, certified financial planner, financial analyst, CPA all say the same thing. They say invest in the market. But everyone who hears that goes, no, no, no. What's the real secret though? And the longer that they're waiting to find the secret, the longer they're delaying getting started on actually living the life that they want.
So true. So true. I love that. Could we do a little recap since we're towards the end?
For sure. First, let me tell you a little bit about Chun's personal story. So Chun lived below his means for over a decade, or yeah, for like over a decade. He achieved financial independence in 8 years, but even before that, he was building up to this. He just didn't know all the principles at that time. He was still living below his means from the time he got out of college. You know, he saved up 50% of every one of his paychecks for investments. So once that 8 years started, he was actually putting that into the S&P 500. He didn't say exactly what fund. He just had a broad market index. So I'm assuming an ETF or maybe a mutual fund with a low expense ratio. Now he uses the 4% rule to sustain his wealth. And he had a quote that says, when you're actually financially free, you can have the flexibility or, sorry. When you are financially free, you can then have the flexibility or that airspace to actually do what you want. You know, and I could say, I can echo that saying how cool it actually is to be able to do what you want. But you know, he really talks about diversifying your income sources. So now that Xiao is financially independent, he talks a lot about he's still teaching as a part-time professor. He's still creating educational content on YouTube, and he's running a career coaching business. So even though he's achieved financial independence, he never actually needed to get to financial independence to stop working his 9-to-5 job. Because through trying to get to the point where he never had to work again, he went and actually found the thing that he wanted to do for the rest of his life. So a lot of people think in order for me to retire, I need to have 5 million, 6 million, $7 million. In fact, according to Charles Schwab, there was a survey that they did back in, a few years ago, that the average American thought that they needed $2.2 million to retire comfortably, which I think is actually really good because most people, when I ask, say like 15 to $20 million, which is crazy. But if we were to do the 4% rule on $2.2 million to retire, that means you're going to be living on $88,000 a year for a lifestyle before taxes, which obviously is not that bad of a life.
Great lifestyle.
Depends on you,
Yeah.
but that's not bad. So let's recap the 4 principles. Principle number 1, acknowledge that the ultimate goal is to be financially free, or just to be free in general from having to do what you want. Principle number 2, actively work to increase your income. Number 3, decrease how much money you spend. And number 4, stop trading your time for money. And I'm going to add in, stop only trading your time for money.
Yeah.
You need to have other income sources that are bringing you money while you sleep. And that can be investments in real estate. That can be investments in the stock market. That can be investments in crypto, in oil and gas, in whatever. But in order for you to have truly passive income, you need to invest your money with somebody else that is going out into the marketplace and trying to derive value. There is nothing out there that you can just put money into that is passive. like truly passive unless you're giving it to somebody else to try to make more money with
Mhm.
as like almost a loan.
I agree.
So
100%.
financial independence to our listeners, it's achievable. It just takes discipline and the right strategy. And we just gave you the strategy that you guys need to deal with. Now, if you need more specific help, if you need specific processes, you can always reach out to me, Chris at monsonwealth.com. And that's exactly what I do and help you with creating that process, implementing it. But I believe that knowledge should be free. That's the reason we have the podcast. We give all the knowledge out 100% free. But if you want the process, you want the step by step, you want it tailored individually to you, you need to work with somebody individually for
I
that.
love it. I love it. Yeah. I hope people understand the gems you're dropping in these podcasts and really taking advantage of it. We talk about a lot on the podcast. We don't want you to just listen. We want you to take action. Entertainment, or, what was the quote? Education without action is just entertainment. I like it.
Yes.
That's today's quote of the day. Act. I love it. I love it. I love it. It hurts, but it's true. It's true. If you're just listening, you're not taking any action. It happens to just be entertainment. Might as well go watch The Simpsons or something. You're getting the same value because you're not learning. You're not taking action. So might as well go do something else. But we encourage you to always take action. Always, always, always act fast. Act now. Let's get started today. Start with your ultimate goal. Is it like our case study today? Is it like, is it to be free, or is it to retire at 50? You have to decide that for yourself. Everybody has different goals. Everyone I talk to, it surprises me all the time. I talked to two different people today. I say, well, what's your goal? Like working here. And they'll give me a goal. I said, oh, okay, interesting. And I reconcile with my own goal. We're not all chasing the same goal. And that's okay. That's okay. So make sure you find your goal, your ultimate goal. And like we talked about today, find a way to increase your income to get to there, decrease your spending, and to stop trading your time for money. In some way or another, we're always going to be trading our time for money, right? Um, but I hope you understand what we're talking about when we say that.
Yeah, but we can always start to trade our money for more money in the future, and getting our money is working hard for us. So if you're listening to this, please start your path to financial independence today. Please know that Dominic and I, we don't get anything if you start saving more money. We don't get anything if you start making more money. Like I always say, look at someone's incentives, and our incentives is really to grow this community in order to help our viewers, you listening. So Dominic, you talked a lot about action this week. So, our action step of the week is I want our listeners to take some time to assess your current financial situation and set an intention to start moving towards your version of financial freedom. Begin by identifying one area where you can start to take immediate action, whether that is increasing your income, cutting down your expenses, or just educating yourself on investing. Pick one of the steps that aligns with the principles that resonate with you most today and commit to making progress this week. And I'm not asking you to go from no knowledge on investing to Warren Buffett. I'm asking for 1% better.
Love that. I love that. 1% better. That's all we're asking. 1% better. I love that.
Yep, 1% better every day. Don't just get 1% better and stop. You keep doing it. But
1% a year, it's like, no, it's not going to really work. We need every day.
So to our listener, thank you so much for joining us. If you got value at this point, which if you had not subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. So hit that subscribe button. Please leave a comment for the algorithm. You can leave up to a 5-star review to us, and we would love to see the reviews. So please let us know what we can do. If you want to be featured on Five Friday Feedback, go ahead and go to thefiguys.com. There's a feedback tab. Click on that. Put in whatever you want. The more detail, the better. The more information you give me, the better information I can give you on how to help your situation. And if you have any suggestions on things that you want to learn about, you can always email us or just put it in the feedback tab at thefiguysvideopodcast.com. Let us know what kind of things you want to learn about. I love teaching, and Dominic loves learning and loves teaching as well. So we're happy to continue to do that. Dominic, can you tell everyone what we asked for them for joining us here on the show?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Has nothing to do with a credit card. Nothing at all. No $4.99 a month. None of that. We only ask that you share the podcast with someone who you want to see finally be financially free. Don't send it to someone you don't like. Don't send it to someone you don't want to see successful. Send it to someone who you actually care about. who you want to see in a greater place than they are today. Maybe that's a mom, maybe that's a dad, maybe a brother, a sister, a friend. Send it to someone. We would really appreciate you spreading the word of financial freedom, financial independence. We want to see a world where more people can actually live a life of intention, live a life of abundance and peace and happiness. And it all starts with getting your mindset right, getting your finances right, getting yourself right. Okay? We don't just talk about finance here on the Fi Guys. We talk a lot about psychology, mentalness, mindset. There we go. Mentalness. Never heard of it. Never seen it. Don't even know if it's a word. With that being
New word, registered trademark for the Fi Guys.
Exactly. We're out here creating new words. So stay tuned. Make sure to share the podcast. We really appreciate you being here. It means, genuinely, it means the world to us. And if we can change one person at a time, hey, we love that. But with that being said, we're going to see you back here on Friday's podcast. Don't worry, we'll still be posting stuff in between the week as we always do. So stay tuned. Make sure you have notifications turned on. Make sure you're following. Tell a friend. Like the video or the podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're there. Till next time, I'm Dom. He's Chris. We'll see you guys in the next one. Later, guys.
Later.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.